rebuild or the favorites. We here for the latest. South side or the north side. Not tuned to the greatest. Home team for the home teams. Both sides got our own rings. On the mound or the long ball. But we don't put the wrong strings. Yeah. It's that time of the year now. Wrigley or Gantes or the whole league that we hear now. New show with a new mood. Discussions and interviews. Trade rumors that might be. This is Pinwheels and Ivy.
Hello and welcome to the Pinwheels and Ivy podcast. I'm Mitchell Kaminski, bringing you White Sox talk every week. Big week for White Sox baseball here. White Sox playing some pretty good ball after the trade deadline. 8-4 since, scoring a lot of runs. That game last Friday against the Cubs was fun. Rest of that series, not so much. But obviously, yesterday was the trade deadline. Got a lot to break down. Not a whole lot of time to do it. So let's get into it. I do want to start with the move that Chris Getz did not make, and that had a lot of people fired up. So let's start with Luis Robert Jr. A lot of people expected Luis Robert Jr. to be traded. There was a couple teams that were reportedly interested. He did not get traded. Now, Chris Getz was in a very unenviable position here, because Luis Robert Jr. You're never going to get full value for what he could be, right? Like, everyone knows what he can be. You know what he did in 2023. He's got the 30 home run potential, and even when he's not playing well, he still shows you flashes to remind you that he is an elite talent. He just hasn't put it all together yet. So, like, there's always that, like, dangling there. It's like, man, like, what if? So you don't want to just throw him away for scraps. But at the same time, if you do hold on to him, instead of trading him when his value realistically is probably near the lowest it's ever been. So you trade him when your value is low, knowing you're probably going to get burned on that deal. It's not going to look well, because once he puts on another uniform, he's probably going to change the scenery. It's going to look good at a contender, a lot more line of protection around him. He really hasn't had a whole lot of line of protection with the White Sox, and it's affected his numbers. And I think it's affected his confidence some. So, like, the trade's probably not going to look that good, but you can trade him, or you hold on to him, and you risk losing him for nothing. You got to pick up his $20 million option, but you could be spending money and then rolling the dice again. Okay, can he rebound? Knowing in the back of your mind, too, with his injury history, he is leaving the batter's box awkwardly, one misstep away from all of a sudden landing on the IL, and then your investment, $20 million investment, now he's back on he has propensity for getting injured. So you got that to factor in, too. And realistically, after that $20 million option's up after next year, I mean, he's not re-signing in free. I mean, do you even bother? So it's not an enviable position. It's really a lose-lose situation. But here's why I think Chris Getz was smart to hang on to him. If you have something of value, other teams are going to let you know. Like, people will let you know. And other teams want it. You don't just give it away for, like, nothing. It's clear they did have something of value. Because if I were to show you Robert's numbers from this year, blindly, and you had no idea who it was, I blindly put up his numbers from the offensive numbers from this year, you would be like, this guy stinks. He is a scrub. I mean, they're not all that impressive. Well, let's call it what it is. He's having a terrible year. And yet, even with all that, other teams are still interested. So, I mean, that just goes to show, like, they know these other teams, they know what he can be. They know how good he can be. And even a bad Luis Robert Jr., as bad as he's been this year, he still helps you win ball games, right? Like, he's stealing a lot of bases when he does get on. He has a near career high walk rate this year. He's playing Gold Glove caliber defense. And he's really good center fielder, especially for a young pitching staff. That's nice to have on a team where you don't have a whole lot of outfield prospects. So I think while it is certainly a risk, and there's an argument made, you should just take whatever you can get for him. I'm glad they didn't just trade him for a couple of lottery tickets and some low-level fringe prospects. Probably are never going to be as good with the potential that he could live up to. So I think even if you can't trade him, by bringing him back, you have money to spend. The money's not an issue. I'm sick of listening to people complain about the money. Oh, $20 million is so expensive for Luis Robert Jr. Yeah, it is expensive. It's not your money, though. Who else are they spending it on? There's nothing on that payroll next year. So they can afford to pick up that option. That's number one. Number two, if he does play really well, second half of the season, you pick up that option. You can flip him over the offseason. You can flip him during next year's trade deadline. Chris Getz has shown in his history, this is one of the things I like about him. He has an asking price. He's not willing to budge off of it. He has shown that he's willing to drag out negotiations with Dylan Cease, dragged it all the way through spring training. Everyone knew he wasn't going to pitch for the Sox that season. He waited until spring training to make that move. Garrett Crochet. I mean, a lot of people knew he was going to get traded. He had an opportunity to trade him at the deadline. He's like, you know what? We didn't get the price we wanted. We can do this in the offseason. So I think that's a smart strategy. Let him boost his value back up. Even if he doesn't boost his value back up, there's still a lot of things he does that can help you win a game. So I'd rather roll the dice on that $20 million option when you have money to spend than just trade him away and watch him rake for another contender, help another team win while you got some fringe level prospects. Yeah, the asking price wasn't there. And we don't know what he was offered, but I'm going to trust him and say, like, look, if the price wasn't there, there's no need to trade him. Mike Tomlin was another one, too. I think, you probably could have gotten something for value of him, but realistically, like, what are you getting back that's going to help you in the long run? Again, you're getting another lottery ticket. Talkman right now is your best hitter. He's really good in the clubhouse from all accounts. That's the type of veteran presence you want when you got all these young kids developing. You can bring them back next year again for cheap. So I'm fine with them keeping him too. Some of the bullpen guys with the prices that were being paid, like Dan Altavilla, I could have seen them trying to trade him. Grant Taylor was another one, especially you see some of the other returns around the league. I think a case could have been made to trade him, but the White Sox, they view him as a starter long-term, so they didn't want to trade him. I'm fine with that. So let's get into the moves that they did make, because I think Chris Getz, I think selfishly, this team's playing really good baseball right now, and they're fun to watch. So, like, I'm kind of glad they didn't blow up, because selfishly, it's like, well, man, I don't want to watch this team, like, terrible. It's more fun when they're winning games. So selfishly, I like the fact they kept a lot of their good players, but two, again, like, if you have something, don't just give it up to give it up. Don't just trade people to trade people. There's everyone pounding the table. I want to make all these moves. So what? You can get some AA guy from Gwinnett that you've never heard, or AAA from Gwinnett you've never heard of? Like, I mean, come on now. I don't know. I get it. It's what you got to do at times, but, like, I actually think Chris Getz handled that trade deadline pretty well. The only guy that should have been traded, like, they needed to be traded, in my opinion, was Hauser. And if you can get some stuff, other stuff for your veterans, great. All right, let's get into what they actually did get at this trade deadline. We're going to start with the Austin Slater trade. Now, Austin Slater, when he was first signed, he was brought in to kind of help work more professional at-bats. He hit left-handed pitchers really well, and he gets on base. So his numbers overall this year didn't look all that great. He was just slashing 236, 299, 243, 5 homers, 11 RBIs. It's like, who the hell would want to trade for him? But the one thing he did well in his platoon role, because kind of a limited sample size again, 860 OPS against left-handed pitching. And that the Yankees, they had a very left-handed heavy lineup as far as bats goes. You need a righty in there to kind of help you hit those left-handers. Slater's your guy. He's been a fourth outfielder most of his career, even with better teams with the Giants, still fourth outfielder. That's just kind of what he's been. It's a role he's comfortable in. So for the Yankees, I think that, that's a pretty cheap left-handed bat. And the White Sox, this is a guy you signed. I think Chris Getz, he went with all these moves. I think he handled that trade deadline really well. And unlike last offseason, because last offseason, when that team broke the record for most losses, he was partly responsible because a lot of the veterans he brought in or the free agents he added stunk. They provided no value. The pieces he's identified this offseason have been really good fits. Talkman's been crushing it. Slater, you got something to value for at the trade deadline. Hauser, who we're going to get into, he plays really well. You also get something for value. So a lot of the guys he identified this year to bring in during the offseason, and one, I think, been really good fits. And you saw in the case of two of these moves here, you're able to get something in return at the deadline for pieces that were not going to be long-term contributors. So Slater, obviously, I thought it was ironic too. It was one of the first moves Chris Getz made this offseason. He hit the first home run of the season for the White Sox on opening day, and he was the first trade domino to kind of fall for the White Sox, in which turned out to not be that many, but a lot of first for Slater. So in return, the White Sox got right-handed pitching prospect Gage Zeal. So Zeal, he's the number 18 prospect in the Yankees farm system. Yankees farm system's not that great. They were ranked 24th in baseball by MLB.com heading into the season. He's actually now the number 14th ranked prospect in the White Sox system. Zeal was initially drafted by the Cubs, but he wanted to go to Miami, pitch for the Hurricanes instead. And he was a pretty good pitcher for the Hurricanes. A lot of times with the college ERAs, I don't put a ton of stock in that because, they got the aluminum bats. The defense isn't as good. So if you're just looking at like the baseline numbers, it's not all that great, but there's a lot to like about him, even when he was down there. And I thought he finished with a pretty respectable record. His freshman year at a 4.04 ERA, and he had one save in 35.2 innings. Sophomore year, he was kind of he was the Hurricanes workhorse. He led the team in starts, innings pitched, strikeouts, Had a 4.30 ERA, 100 strikeouts in 92 innings. So he had a pretty good year. So he got drafted. Again by the Yankees in the 4th round last year. He's reached all the way to AA. He's got a 4.15 in the minors this year across 3 levels. Now opponents are hitting 272 against him. His stuff isn't anything overpowering. Mid-90s fastball. His best pitch is probably his slider. It's kind of like a wipeout pitch for him. I think he's got a low 80s changeup or mid-80s, low 80s slider, mid-80s changeup on top of that. But from everything that I've read, the guy's got really good command. He's only walked 14 batters this year in the minors. That's pretty good. Usually some of the guys we've seen the White Sox target in the past are these really hard throwing guys that don't have a lot of command. Zeal's a bit different. I don't think he's got the most overpowering stuff. Now, he throws hard enough, but he's got good command of especially his fastball, but all of his pitches. Doesn't walk a whole lot of guys. And he's big. He's over 200 pounds, 6 foot. He can eat a lot of innings for you, too. I think if everything pans out right for Zeal, he could be a back end of the rotation guy. We'll see. I mean, it's a lottery ticket, but considering the guy you traded away only had 5 home runs on the year, he's hitting 236. He's a rental piece. He'd take what you can get. That's a good trade, in my opinion. I give that trade. I give that. I think all things considered, that's a B-. I think that's a very good trade for Chris Getz and company. Now, the next trade they made was Adrian Hauser. This is really their big one of the deadline. And it was with the Tampa Bay Rays. And they always warn you, never trade with the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays usually have, they wind up on the better end. Now, the Cubs traded with Tampa with Christopher Morel. And actually, I think that kind of worked out pretty well for them, all things considered. So the White Sox, in exchange for Hauser, they got Curtis Mead, and then a pair who's an infielder. He's played a little bit of major league ball, and then they got some minor league arms, Duncan David and Benjamin Peoples. I think with Hauser, let's first off start with this. Again with Getz, like with some of the veterans and free agency sign and pieces he's brought in, it's hard to view Hauser's tenure in Chicago as anything other than a success, right? I mean, the guy who started the year in AAA, he couldn't even make the Texas Rangers opening day lineup. He was in AAA when Chris Getz called. And I think the major reason he called was that they needed an innings eater. The bullpen was really struggling. Martin Perez is on the IL. They need some guy to eat innings. Hauser comes in, and not only does he eat innings, work deep into ball games, he emerges as one of the most consistent starters in the American League. Makes 11 starts, wins 6 of those games, and 9 of his 11 starts were quality starts. Hey, you can't ask for much better than that. I thought it was really cool. He had his family in attendance, that his final start in Chicago for that crosstown game. Threw the ball really, really well. It looked a little bit worse than it was. He had 6 and 2/3 innings. And he would have been scoreless. He gave up a 3-run homer to our old friend Reese McGuire in the 7th inning there. So he got pulled after that. But I mean, was able to work around some traffic and against a really good Cubs lineup. That was really impressive. I thought it was a nice way to send him off. But so one, not only did you get more than you bargained for when you signed him, the fact you were able to get 3 prospects back in return, and Mead especially, I think, is interesting. Now, Mead's a former top 100 prospect. He got as high as number 33 or 30th in baseball in 2023. So it depends what publication you look at, but he was also still within the top 100 in 2024. So obviously pretty high pedigree guy. Initially, he started in the Australian Baseball League. Gets drafted by the Phillies in 2018. 18 months later, he got traded for Christopher Sanchez. And that worked out pretty well for the Phillies. So 2021, he had a pretty good year in the Warriors minor league system, over a 900 OPS. He kind of suffered an elbow strain 2022, limited his production a little bit. Finally reached the majors in 2023 after having a pretty good season in AAA. So far in his major league career, he has not played over 50 games. This season's been the most he's ever played as far as games go, but he has yet to play more than 50 games in an MLB season to this point. He's getting close this year. But MLB career, I mean, you look at the numbers, not anything special. 111 games. He's hitting 238, 629 OPS, 5 homers, and 20 RBIs. He did start a couple playoff games for the Rays. He started games 1 and 2 of the wild card series against the Rangers back in 2014. He's still only 24 years old, and he can play multiple infield positions. He played third base, second base, shortstop. Now, the arm strength, a little questionable, so not as much of a third baseman. The White Sox also have quite a few middle infielders right now, so it's going to be interesting to see where he kind of fits in that mix. But there is some upside with the bat, and Chris Getz kind of talked about this too. It actually kind of reminded me a lot of Nomar Mazara, where Rick Hahn was talking about, there's a lot of untapped potential here. That's kind of the vibes it was giving off. But you've seen with a lot of White Sox hitters, getting in the Ryan Fuller lab. And he's really kind of tapped into a lot of these guys' potential. One of the big things, and I believe it was Dylan Barnett's on Twitter. He posted the whole breakdown of it, so you can check that out. But if you look at the pull rates this year, especially pulling the ball in the air, which is a big key. You want Colson Montgomery, for example. That's one of the things you see him hitting the ball so well. It's one of the things he's doing really well. He's pulling the ball in the air at a really high rate, especially at a park like Guaranteed Rate Field for a left-handed hitter. You can get the ball in the air there. I mean, like you're gonna steal a couple home runs, and across the board, a lot of these White Sox hitters, you're seeing an improvement there, and you're seeing these guys really kind of like Lenyn Sosa, who there was signs he was going to break out last year. I think he's having a really good offensive season. So you know, consistently seeing that. So Meade could be a guy that they bring in. He gets in that Ryan Fuller lab. Maybe he can tap in to some of that potential. So I think he's an interesting piece. David and Peoples, 24-year-old right-hander. 2.65 ERA with 39 punch-outs in AAA this season. He's more of a reliever. David is a starter. He's had 103 innings this season between AA and AAA. Owns a 4.08 ERA, pretty respectable. 105 strikeouts and a 1.17 WHIP. Honestly, not bad. I think, obviously, Meade's the headline piece in that trade. Do I think Meade turns out to be an impactful piece for this White Sox team? I do not. But I think there's some potential. Why not take a flyer on him? Were you going to bring back Hauser next year? Probably not. Might as well cash in. That's a guy you're willing to take a lottery ticket on. It's still high. His value wasn't going to be any higher than it is now. As good as Adrian Hauser's been this season, do I think he's the number one long-term ace moving forward? No. It's kind of like Eric Fetty from last year. He looked good with the White Sox. He moves on, and you see kind of how that plays out. So I give actually this trade. I like all things together, just the whole Hauser era and culminating with this trade, A-. I think Chris Getz, he did a pretty good job there. Were there some other pieces that could have been added? Maybe could have been traded away. I mean, you see some of the bullpen prices that were being paid, and I mean, it makes you think like, yeah, man, maybe the White Sox, they could have cashed in with Grant Taylor, but Taylor I think is a really good arm. I think Robert too. Also, if you look at Cedric Mullins, who got traded, who's also having a pretty bad year, a little bit better than Roberts if you look at the numbers, but still having a pretty bad year. That was a very underwhelming trade. They got a couple fringe prospects from the Mets in that trade. So, I think, I think I see a lot of complaining right now on social media, and I don't really understand why. I think it's a fun team, and if you look at that division, Twins blew up their roster. Cleveland's trying to trade away people. They would have traded Class A. It had not been for that gambling scandal. Really, the only competitive team there. I mean, the Royals, I don't really know what they did. They kind of did a mixture. They sold and bought. So that was a weird one to me. But like that division's wide open. They started investing and bringing in some people. I mean, this could be a team that, because beat up on some of those weaker AL Central teams. You might mess around and play. They'd be in contention for a wild card spot next year. I think it's more of a 75-80 win team next year. I think that's a realistic expectation. I still think they're going to win. My prediction heading into the season was 60. I think they're well on track for that. They might even win more than 60. So, we'll see. It's a good time to be a White Sox fan right now. There's genuine reason for optimism. The kids are playing really well. Carroll looks really good. Teal looks good. Montgomery, my God, I owe that man an apology. I thought he wouldn't be ready for the majors. And there's still some stuff to clean up. But a lot can be forgiven when you're hitting home runs. And the man's doing it at a ridiculous clip. Now, do I think pitchers are going to adjust and that's going to slow down a little bit? Yes, I do. But it's hard to argue with the results. He's played some pretty good defense. And what really impressed me, he had one of those worst games as a major league player, I thought, in that series finale against the Cubs. Right? I mean, he doesn't get a hit all day. Makes a pretty bad error. And then there's that base runner interference play, which that was lazy defense by him. I'm sorry. You got to be in better position than that. I don't know what he was doing in the middle of the bag. Ian Happ trucks up and drops the ball. So he has a terrible game. In front of a 30, the whole city's watching. Young player that could easily shake your confidence. He comes right out the next game against a good Phillies team. He hits a home run. Doesn't even bother him. I mean, he looks unfazed. Even with that one bad defensive game against the Cubs, again, I think his defense has been really solid. And he's hitting the ball with power. He's hitting it for power. He hasn't even drawn a walk yet, but he's hitting for power, which we love to see, especially in this ballpark. You hit a couple home runs, you're going to be in a lot of games. We saw it against, that Cubs game Friday was so much fun to watch because they just kept sending balls out of the yard. that goes again to pulling the ball in the air. You can have a lot of success there. And this team, the last couple of years, we just haven't had many home run hitters. And it seems like some of these kids bring some, they can slug. They can slug, which is nice. It's a lot more fun to watch. So this will be an interesting team to watch down the stretch. I think Chris Getz, overall, I like what he did. Price wasn't there for Luis Robert. Don't trade him. It's a gamble, of course, but don't just trade him to trade him. That's what I say. That's all I got for you. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you're reading Sports Mockery, sportsmockery.com. We got a full breakdown, a lot of those trades on there. You want to get a little bit more in depth. We should have some more stuff coming out today as well. Going to be working on some of the stuff that Chris Getz had said about breaking down his strategy, and, the decision to keep Luis Robert Jr. So make sure you're checking that out at Sports Mockery, sportsmockery.com. We'll be back hopefully Wednesday of this week. We're back to our usually scheduled time slot, a little bit busier this week. And then obviously with the trade deadline, figure we should push the show back a little bit. So should be back at our normal time next Wednesday in the 12 o'clock hour. But make sure you're following at Pinwinsoul at Ivy and at Sports Mockery, and you can get all the updates for the show times. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful weekend.